We always figure it out, don't we, Tommy T?
Exactly.
Hello, everyone. Hello, chat. Nice to be here. Thank you for joining this live stream recording of pre podcast, race review podcast. If you would like to listen to better quality audio, that is, if you can't quite hear Campy, or you can't quite hear me, or you can't quite hear Tommy T,
Or you want to hear
whilst
less
it's
of one of
great to
us.
have you here, you can listen to our proper podcast, the audio podcast, which, pending Campy's audio not crapping itself again, will be available shortly after we finish up here. But it is great to have you here. If you're in the chat, say hello, and I will try and say hello back through the podcast recording. Now, Tommy T, have you got your notes up there, my friend?
I've got my notes.
Excellent. And Campy, your computer is back to working full steam for real viruses?
I'm thinking I might just get off and go and reset the modem. No, I'll be right. Figure it out. If I drop out, I drop out. Technical difficulties. What do you do,
mate? If you drop out, just join back at whatever point. We will continue without you. All is good. Okay. Well, if everyone is happy with that, yeah. Let me. We'll get into it. Harrison, hello.
Hello, chat. How are you?
Young Prince, hello. Hopefully you can hear us okay. Do let me know if any of the audio stuff sounds bad. My apologies for the podcast yesterday with Freya. I know on the live stream it looked a little silly. She was freezing every couple of seconds, but the audio sounded fantastic. So go and listen to the audio podcast if you haven't yet listened to it. Cool beans. All right, lads, should we crack on with it?
Let's bloody do it.
Get into it.
All right. Max Verstappen holds off Lewis Hamilton to win his first US Grand Prix. Ferrari finds some power, and Daniel Ricciardo finishes in P5, in a track that we didn't think would suit the McLarens. G'day there, my name is James Baldwin, and welcome to another episode of Lakeside Drive's F1 podcast. In this episode, we're reviewing the United States Grand Prix. And I'm joined by my friends and yours. Campy, hello there, mate. How you doing?
Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing very well. And the very wonderful is back. Tommy T. G'day, mate.
I'm back. Can we just hold the phone for a second? Is that a new beanie, Campy?
Whoa.
Yeah, I've just got one. The other one's
that
in
a
the
freshie?
wash. That's the other one's in the wash, so I had to...
well, hang on a second.
You
Stop the
wash it?
podcast. Hang on. All right.
Hang on.
Right, stop. Or whatever, Formula One. Hang on. You washed the beanie.
What?
Is this the first
All the
time...
magic's gone.
How many? Your COVID protection's gone. It's like the mask that Helmut Marko's been wearing since Austria last year.
It's like someone throwing at the starter of an amazing sour bread or something. It's just gone. It's years.
Yeah, it routinely gets a wash. It's
Mate.
slightly falling apart, so I might have to sub this one in.
That looks like a darker green. That's
it
like
has
an
been
olive
falling-
number there.
Your
Yeah, this one's
other
a bit
beanie has been
tighter.
falling apart since the first episode of this podcast, which was almost 3 years ago.
What do you do? What do you do? Can't win them
You're
all.
wearing your... It's actually it's weird seeing this color. If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, just do yourself a favor, jump across it. Like, you don't have to watch the YouTube version of it, but just look at Campy's head. It's odd.
It brings out
Odd
the
not
eye.
seeing an olive color on your, or greeny olive.
This
Brings
is the
out my
going out
eyes,
beanie.
Jim.
Well,
The going out beanie.
now that you got your freedoms back, you can
Yeah.
finally put your going out beanie on.
Yeah.
That's it.
Look, Tommy T, great to have you back. I do want to say a massive thank you to Freya for jumping on the podcast. I know that it is a bit overwhelming, quite honestly, jumping on any kind of podcast. And we spoke a little bit after we finished recording. And Freya's like, I need to make sure I didn't sound like a stranger. And I did remind her that on our MotoGP podcast, even though that Munnis lives 20 minutes up the road from Campy, we haven't yet met him either. So that's the Lakeside Drive way. But if you haven't listened to our pre-drinks podcast, go back and do that. We couldn't get Tommy T on, but Freya was a very, very great addition. Mark
a bit
K
too great,
even
mate.
suggesting you should watch yourself, Tommy T.
I'm watching
Look,
myself.
she's a quality
I'm on
contributor
probation.
right there. So that's what we want from the fans, a bit more fan engagement. And
That's it.
if you want a shot, just get your content and you get your comments better.
Really doesn't matter. You don't have to speak that well to be on the podcast. That's shown by Campy. But yeah, honestly, what a great thing for me to be able to just message someone who, yes, is Australian, but lives in the Cayman Islands and say, hey, do you want to hop on the podcast? It was Saturday night, her time, can I just say, 6:30 Saturday night. It's prime time to be going out, I'm sure. But she chose to be on the podcast. So, look, a massive thank you to you. The other shout out that I want to do is to, if you have been across on our Instagram channel, you will know that we have someone who's looking after that for us now. Lewis is his name. He's from the other side of the bay in Melbourne, so we won't hold that against him. But he reached out and said, hey, look, would love to volunteer to help out you guys. And he's doing a great job. Not only have we got better engagement already through what he's been doing, but we've got more YouTube subscribers as well. And I have to be honest, that is one of the things I keep banging on about. And I'm only kind of apologetic, but we're sitting at about 570 out of 1,000 now. And anything that you do in that space makes a difference. If you like the video, if you comment, if you subscribe, all of that stuff, it just helps. Doesn't cost you a cent, but it helps us at a significant amount. Look, a massive thank you as well, of course, to our Discord channel. So good, guys. If you're not there, go do yourself a favor, jump on. There was lots of Australian chat about, I don't know how I feel about bacon and eggs in Formula One, but I feel like it's a good thing to experience, which was this morning. Loved that as well. And thank you to you if you've left a review. We've got 106 5-star reviews in Australia, which is great. We're one of the top F1 podcasts. Again, can't thank you enough for all of the things that you do in that space, because the three of us, just like you, we're just fans. We bloody love the sport. We bloody love Daniel Ricciardo, and we love having a bit of a chat. So that's it's all good vibes here on Lakeside Drive. All right, well, let's get into it, shall we, boys? Because the best part of the podcast, it's Campy's favourite part of the podcast. We'll kick it off. Tommy T's television broadcast review.
Well, I managed to miss most of it.
Yes,
which is
you did.
becoming more regular. So I had to work this morning, and obviously I missed the podcast yesterday due to some prior commitments. So that means I was pretty behind. So I was trying to catch up, but I did just watch the race. I didn't watch much of the start, but I think my highlights are going to be pretty much Instagram highlights. They weren't really the broadcast ones. It was Daniel in a NASCAR and Zach getting a Monza tattoo. They've got to be the highlights. So when McLaren's social media feed is better than Sky, I think that's saying a lot.
Well, I mean, not difficult, is it? Let's be honest.
No. But to be honest, this is going to be one of the best because Austin is so much fun, isn't it, Campy?
Oh, the best city in the United States by a country mile.
So fun.
I missed it too. I started watching the race at about 6:05. I slept in after watching MotoGP last night, and I was a bit behind, so I missed the Star Spangled Banner.
What happened?
All I've got to go and do. All I've got to do is go and watch another American sporting event to see it. But
I was going to say that's like I would have thought that would have been your alarm clock. Is you just
I
the
know.
television turned on to the national anthem, and you would have been bolt upright, ready to go, with a
saluting
in
the
hand.
flag.
Correct, just going full send, full Campy. Donald J. Camp arrived at Coda. Off we go. Entered through the television screen.
Did they have a flyover?
Let's be honest. We know that the United States can do that sort of stuff amazingly well. Boys, I'm not going to go back and just watch it for yourself because it was bloody fantastic. The whole thing, the spectacle, 400,000 people over the course of the weekend at Circuit of the Americas.
Yep.
I will guarantee you this, listener.
Turn one looked packed.
I will guarantee you this. In 2022, hopefully all three of us, but definitely two of us will be at the Circuit of the Americas for something. Hopefully I'm still in this space. That'll be great, but maybe not. Maybe on the other side.
Dropping hints, Jim.
But I cannot wait, boys, to go to Coda because the vibe, the Netherlands Grand Prix, Dutch Grand Prix, Netherlands looked amazing, but you couldn't see anything because of the orange smoke, although there were a couple of obligatory orange flares being let off at Coda anyway. But the vibe looked amazing. Again, Hillary, shout out to you, our person on the ground. She was sending through all kinds of photos, walking around the track and telling us about the vibe. They were trying to get, I think, her partner's dad some DR merch on Saturday, and it all just sold out. It had all gone. There was no Daniel Ricciardo merch left anywhere at all. But Tommy T, just on that point for your broadcast review, again, another wonderful thing that was on F1 social media, and then McLaren was also old mate in somewhere on one of the grass paddocks in his Danny Rick shirt doing a
Having a
shoey.
shoey. Yeah.
Absolutely
Did say that.
fantastic.
And is there any debate that Daniel is the most liked in the United States? I don't think it's even
No.
close, is it?
Not even close.
Not even-
Campy, what do you
Well,
think?
as we alluded to yesterday, F1 just did a global survey, and Lando was the favourite driver amongst all the women, and like he got 18% of the vote, and Danny Rick only got 10%. I was like, geez, this is something.
I didn't vote in that. Did you vote in that?
I actually, yeah, I did it. I did the survey, and I was brutally honest. There was a section in it that said like, name recognition. Give me like 4 words that you associate with that one, and like corrupt was number 1 that I put on there. So I'm not
surprised.
Wow.
So
Ferrari the next.
I'm not sure how seriously they took my survey, but
Bloody hell.
yeah, that's all I remember about it. It took me about 20 minutes from memory.
Well, look, it was an in-depth survey, absolutely. But look, Tommy T, we're talking about television broadcast review. Any other key points for the weekend? What were your thoughts of commentary? Brundle was back out with the one-liners, wasn't he? Was out,
Yeah, it was good.
a month of Sundays with the dollar short comment. He almost did it in rapid
Yes.
succession.
And it might sound weird, but I was kind of happy to have Karoon back.
Well, it doesn't
He
sound
wa-
too weird. In the right
No.
environment, Karoon is actually very good. And I think, Skypad is a good place for him, to be honest.
He was good. He was actually pretty good this weekend, and it was nice for a change.
Just like his
We had
2010 season, it was pretty good too.
So after the kerfuffle of last week and not having a classic Grand Prix to watch, Campy went through and paid for F1 TV Pro and then started watching other races. And he messages the chat between the three of us and goes, just watching 2010 Karoon first lap crashes. Just lots of laughing.
No, it was an engine failure. It wasn't.
Oh, engine
no,
failure,
it was.
right.
I mean, he finally gets into F1 and have the car that he got into. I think the most laps they did in succession in testing was about 7. So look,
Brutal.
yeah, I mean, it's a shame for the guy. I mean, he's worked really hard to get to F1 and then gets in that car. But to his credit, all the media that I saw of him in that time where he was super positive and on the front foot, didn't bitch and moan like some of the others on the grid would have. Lewis Hamilton. No, he was very good. He was very good in the media and the positivity that he showed. So I was a bit impressed with Karoon back in 2010. But I'll tell you what, I'm just watching like some season reviews and just finished 2014 yesterday afternoon, and what a cracking season that was. I know Lewis won it, which is a shame, but I'll tell you what, if it went Nico Rosberg's way, he had 4 races where he had engine problems or car failures that made him lose points. In 2 of those he was winning, and 2 of those he was second place. One of them he didn't even make the grid because of a clutch problem. And whereas Lewis Hamilton, I mean, for as lucky as the guy is, he had all his issues in the qualifyings or the practices, which meant he started at the back of the grid. But, I mean, those cars back in those days were so quick, you could come from the back of the grid to second fairly easily. So, I'm changing a bit of the memory of what those seasons were like was just Lewis Hamilton domination. But you go back, it wasn't really the fact. So, I mean, when people say that, Lewis won more races in 2016 than Rosberg, I just go, well, look back at 2014, 15, all the bad luck that Rosberg had, and some of the good luck that Lewis did. So, I mean, look, the guy was better than Valtteri Bottas really in the way that he performed. I mean, consistently beating him on the front row, and he made some mistakes at times too, but I'm stoked for him that he got that championship in 2016 in hindsight, looking back over it, watching these race reviews. So, yeah, it's good.
There's a nice massive tangent there. But anyway.
Yeah, sorry. I was just
No,
like...
it was good. Well, Nico Rosberg, I think we forget about, all we see of him now is either, I see a lot of him in Extreme E, of course, but it's all the bloody, him and his dad with a Heineken ad. That's all we get from a Formula One point of view. Tommy T, The Dale Earnhardt Senior car,
Oh.
bloody gorgeous, fantastic. As I said on the Pre-Drinks podcast, my favorite part of the weekend was Danny Rick's smile beaming through the windscreen of this car coming up to turn one. You could see as he pulled out of the pits just how excited he was to be driving the car. He even left some donuts up the very top of turn one that we could see for the entire weekend.
Love that.
I mean, that's got to be probably one of the best parts of the weekend, doesn't it?
Oh, it has to be that and his like American accent, which you guys already mentioned in the pre-drinks as well. His American accent for a whole interview was outstanding. Nah, it was. I mean, how good is Zach at actually living up to his word and doing those kind of things? Like, because it's just so good for everyone got to enjoy that. Daniel himself and all the fans got to enjoy that alongside. And
How's his bullhorn sideburns? They were pretty, they were a classy
So
act.
great.
I might have to give that a shot.
I started to notice, obviously there was a lot of different helmets this week, and everyone's kind of jumping on that. Daniel was doing that years and years. He's embraced America far ahead of anyone else. So it was nice to see everyone trying to catch up, but it's also kind of they're just trying to keep up with how much Daniel is getting love in America. They're like, this is probably worthwhile putting my foot in this kind of massive arena.
Yeah, well, it's a great
fans.
Massive growth area for Formula One.
Yeah.
You know, as we know, he loves America, Daniel Ricciardo, because America loves him. You know, Netflix's Drive to Survive has been a big part of that. But obviously, being an Aussie, there's no other US guys in the sport. So, you know, an Australian is easier to love than a Canadian. Certainly, if you're from there. Sorry, all our Canadian friends, but the guys in the US aren't going to exactly love you. It's like us trying to love New Zealanders. Sorry, Campy. But it makes sense, right? And he loves being there. He landed there Monday night. He said afterwards we'd had a lot of Texas barbecue. Italiano posts lots of barbecues, like in between his fitness things, like, yeah, you know, join my fitness program, and then just massive amounts of me. It was very funny. And he's even hanging around before going down to Mexico. He's not going down early. He's hanging around in Texas for a little longer. So it's a lot of love there for both directions, and that's good. All right, well, Tommy T, we had Jensen back, of course. We had Martin back. It was a pretty good package. What
it's
was
kind of
your
hard
score?
to be bad with all the good stuff around it, isn't it? You're in a great location with good staff.
What do you think of Danica Patrick?
Oh, yeah, let's talk about Danica.
Yeah, I thought she was pretty good. Like, obviously, she doesn't have that much kind of in the F1 arena, but, like, she's super talented and obviously knows her stuff and obviously knows that circuit enough to comment. I think she was really good.
It was nice to have a different accent, can I just say,
Correct.
and someone with a completely different point of view of things. She drove the wheels off that McLaren with Simon Lazenby in it as well, which was very funny to watch. Just watching Laser going, I'm not happy about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was nice. It was good. I mean, obviously that's an American thing. If we tried to do that here and they went, oh, we're going to Australia and the guest commentator is Campy. Could you imagine?
Hey, mate, that would be rad. That would be quality.
Yeah. Righto, we're doing all of these interviews, but you're in the bin, right? You've got to stand in the bin, and then if you're good enough, you can get out the other end. What's your score, Tommy T, for the television broadcast review?
I think, well, it's going to be a 7, I think. That's
7.
Like a real 7, not last time when I was giving it.
Last time you said 7 because you were a coward.
This is a real 7.
You caved in at some
It's
point.
true.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you're pretty spot on. It was nice to have Martin back in the commentary box, can I just say? He is the best at it, I think, in recent memory anyway. Anyway, that's good to know. We could talk about the national anthem here. Campy hasn't heard it yet, but Campy, just imagine in your mind, how good is it? Because the only reason I raise this is on the YouTube live stream. Creaky says, Campy only watches the commie anthem, subliminal hint.
I hate that shit. You obviously haven't listened to enough of the podcast to understand that I cannot stand it.
What are you talking about? You come here like, oh, there's this nice off major to the slight minor key here, and all the hope's been sapped out of the orchestra. Anyway.
No, mate, I'm a God, guns, and family man. So there we go. Texas Bring it on.
Mate, I cannot wait, honestly, for Coda next year. It is
Ah,
going to
Did you get a
be
tattoo in Texas, Campy?
Yeah,
I
did you get a
did.
tattoo in Texas, Campy?
What's your tattoo?
Well,
I did.
I think Tommy T. Let's just wait, shall we,
Okay,
until
well,
we're at
yeah.
Texas next year, and we can
It's a
have a bit of a
reveal.
reveal as he gets his second tattoo. We'll see if we can go to the same parlor that Zach went to,
Yeah.
and get a honey badger or something tattooed underneath the beard that no one will ever see. 'cause
Oh, I
it's
don't know about that.
but look, I'm sure, Campy, I'm sure you think the national anthem is amazing. Look, let's talk about the race itself, shall we? Before we go our team by team analysis, I just want to have an overview chat of Daniel Ricciardo. Of course, we just spoke about how at home he seems at this Grand Prix. McLaren performed a lot better than we thought they were. Campy, you and I had said in pre-drinks as well, we weren't too sure about a lot of the medium speed corners, but they found a little bit more pace in the second and third part of the track. Ferrari, though, finding even more pace in the first sector, which they were a little shocked with. But overall, DR out-qualified Lando. He's outperformed Lando. It's a good result for him in a track that he likes. I mean, moving forward, we've got Mexico, of course. Is this really what we're going to be seeing? Is your F1 prophecy going to come true for the rest of the year and see Danny Rick out-qualify and outperform Lando?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a tale of the half of the like if you take the first half of the season and the second half of the season since the break, it's exactly where we thought Danny Rick was going to be at the start of the year. I just think he goes on from here as he gains more and more confidence in the car and walks on. I mean, qualifying's 10-7 at the moment, so. I mean, I know there's a few earlier in the year that probably shouldn't have gone his way, but 10-7 and what's he only 50 points behind Lando in the points now? So, I mean, I don't think that gap is surmountable with the rest of the races that we have this year fighting for the positions that they're fighting for. But I just think, I think he's got that base now, and he'll just continually improve for the rest of the year. And we know we know the professional that he is. I mean, it's good coming to a place that he obviously likes. But it wasn't a track I expected McLaren to do well at.
No.
I mean, particularly Danny Rick's first sector. Was way better than Lando Norris's, but I think that was car setup. I think he lost a bit of time in that last sector compared to Lando, but race pace was quality. I mean, pretty even and comparable on race pace. But I think it was great that he held up Sainz the whole race. I know Sainz had some bad luck with a bit of a bad pit stop and definitely had more pace in the McLarens over the weekend. But I mean, track position at times is what defines your place. We saw Leclerc get up the road by 20, 24 odd seconds. So didn't have the pace to match Leclerc, but could definitely have the pace to keep Sainz behind. So I think he'd be stoked. Top 5, he would walk away with that any day of the week.
Yeah.
We saw a cracking opening lap, didn't we? Oh, jeez.
That's what I was going to say. I think
Yeah.
the opening lap cemented it for me. His confidence in that, he has not had that all year, has he?
Yep.
The confidence to make those moves, those late lunges, putting the car where it shouldn't be and risking kind of more than he has previously this year. I think that was the show of confidence he now has in this car, especially against his teammate and especially against Sainz, who is a crafty driver.
Sainz was on the softs, remember? So
yeah, exactly. But he was not giving anything, was he? He was so determined to get back in front before the end of that lap and make sure that he had track position. And we would have seen him previous just kind of be more conservative and think about the long term, like, no, I need to not crash, I need to not do these things and hold back. He was not holding back. It was awesome to see.
Yeah.
I think his racecraft is going to continue to grow and grow and grow.
Yes.
I mean, we know he can overtake. We know what he's like when he's in a car that he likes. But some of those. I mean, that driving on the first lap, but even to hold off Sainz.
Yeah.
Brilliant Grand Prix for Danny Rick, top 5. I mean, we always want him to do better. But
Pretty bloody good.
I mean, if he wasn't in that fight with Sainz, and I only think the only reason Sainz was in that fight was because of his soft tyres on the opening lap. But, he could have had a shot at Leclerc down the back straight, and if he had got in front of him, I don't think he would have been able to hold him off for the whole race, but we saw what he did with Sainz. So a bit of a shame, but, hey, we always want more from him, and he's on the improve. He's definitely back. He's more than competitive. If we look at the times over practices too, still a fair bit behind Carlos at times in the practice sessions, but I don't think that is indicative of the pace that Danny Rick has when it comes to qualifying. I mean, I mean, the improvement over his qualifying from lap to lap to lap, he tends to build up to it, whereas Carlos is sort of there from that point on. So there's still room to improve. There always is, and he'll just continue to get better. But he'll walk away with that with that rivalry this year, and will be firmly on his side of the garage by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think you're right. And look, at the end of the day, as we've said time and time again, it's about 2022. It's not so much about this year. As we said in the pre-drinks podcast, Campy, there's good news coming out of the simulator work for him. Not so great for Lando, which is neither here nor there. But for the rest of this season, if he manages to get some great performances, of course, we're going to Mexico in a couple of weeks, Brazil after that, going to Qatar, which we haven't raced at before. Abu Dhabi and Jeddah as well.
Still got some racing, don't we?
Yeah.
We've got, I mean, yeah, it's a pretty big season as we know, but we've got a couple of tracks in there. I think that McLaren's should, maybe more traditionally, as we should say, this year suit better, more so than we thought Coda. So if there's those advancements coming along, then it's going to be an interesting title fight between McLaren and Ferrari. That's really the juicy part for me now, I should say, especially with Leclerc's pace. He was really in no man's land for a lot of this race after the first couple of laps. Yes, Carlos started on the softs, but he came back at Daniel after some pit stops on the mediums, and he was there to see. So maybe not the best race pace towards the end for DR, but racecraft-wise, fantastic. The defending is good. He kept, Carlos in a second and a half behind him for quite a while there at the very end of the race. The other overarching point I want to talk about before we get into team by team is, of course, the championship as a whole. The Max v. Lewis battle. It's a good thing, Tommy T, to have this kind of tension the whole way through. This was fighting really down until the last laps. Lewis was told it would be all down to the last 3 laps. He almost did it, but he just lost some traction, it looked like, out of turn 11. But overall, for us as fans, this is a mega way to continue this season.
Well, I think they pointed out in the commentary as well, didn't they, that in the past that Lewis has wrapped up the season here, which when we think about how many more races we've still got to go is not really that competitive. Kind of just playing some dead rubbers towards the end, aren't we, and seeing where everything else shakes out. This is so alive, and anyone can still win, which is exactly what we want. We want these races to mean something going later into the season. We don't want to be all over. So I think that's the biggest thing. And also just getting to see them on track, getting to see them strategize, hearing Max yell over the radio, like, use Checo, bloody use it. Like, that's what we want to see. We want to see these two, like, playing chess also as well as driving. I think it was excellent.
Yeah, it's great though, and we said this in the pre-drinks, it's great that Checo's now finally in a position to be used in that way. And I don't mean used in a negative way, but he's found the setup of his car himself. He's not copying Max anymore. He's clearly, he's clearly more comfortable in the car. He didn't have the drink after
really
turn 1.
but...
He looked like a very hot boy afterwards. Even DR, when DR took off his fireproof thing, he was just drenched in sweat. So no good for Checo. I can only imagine he was not feeling that great afterwards. But yeah, it's good, Campy. The championship fight. I mean, when was really the last time that we had such an interesting championship between two different teams, not like a not like a Lewis v. Rosberg kind of battle? I mean, this was before the turbo hybrid era, of course, but
2010 would be the last one.
Right.
We had
it's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
3 drivers that could mathematically win going into the last round at Brazil. So, that was 11 years ago now. It was a long time. So,
yeah, it's good. It's great for the sport. It's great for fans. We obviously love talking about it. And that racing all the way to the very last lap of the race is what we love talking about as well. All right, lads, let's go through our team-by-team analysis as we always do. We're going to start at the very back. It's Alpine, because both cars had a DNF. Ocon, no good. Fernando, it almost sounded like, Fernando decided the car was going to be retired because there was an issue with the rear wing. I don't know if he just wasn't enjoying himself and it was the Fernando of old, where he's like, that's it, I'm retiring the car. I can't be bothered anymore. I'm too far down the back of the pack. But Alpine, Campy, just didn't really have a great weekend overall, did they?
No, they weren't quick and quality. Neither team made it into Q. Started compromised. Ocon got taken out in lap 1 by, not taken out, but he and Raikkonen had an issue, took out his front wing, and that compromised the race. When you don't have much anyway, there's no way you're fighting for points. I can't remember what happened to Alonso, but what happened? He was just. Oh,
He
that's
just had an
right.
issue with his rear wing.
No, he
is
had
what it
that.
is.
He had that battle with Giovinazzi and Raikkonen, got past
Yep.
him, then had to give the spot back about 7 or 8 laps for Radar, and then got in front of him again. And Giovinazzi had to, yield the position the same way that almost carbon copy of what Alonso did to him. So he would have been frustrated, and I can understand. I can give Alonso a pass on retiring the car. Like what?
Yeah.
What is the point in doing? What's the point in running the remaining laps? Save your engine. You got parts allocations. It just hasn't been their weekend. I think as an organisation, they'd be starting to scratch their head a bit about where they go and what they do, because I think. This track hasn't traditionally been an Alpine track, but we saw how Renault went last year with Danny
Well, in 2019 and
Rick,
Danny Rick,
2019,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, which would be a bit of a shocker for them, but that's motorsport, isn't it? And
Yeah.
look, I like their new team principal, the guy from MotoGP. His name eludes me at the moment, but I think they maybe went a bit early on.
On Ocon.
No, on Ocon definitely, but Cyril beatable. I think Cyril had
yes.
that team, and I think ultimately when Danny Rick moved on, I thought the organisation thought, if Danny Rick doesn't want to stay, keep a top driver like that, maybe we need to make some changes, and maybe they made them too early. But again, they're looking forward to next year. We were never supposed to have this year anyway, and it's a bit of an inconvenience. But lucky it's, we're seeing two guys go toe to toe for the title.
It sort of highlights, Tommy T, doesn't it? The distinct car differences between sort of 19, 20 and 21.
Yeah,
And of course, as
big
Campy
time.
said, now we've got the beluga whale of the Alpine with a massive Peugeot mouth at the very top of the car.
Looks horrible.
It does look horrible, but realistically, as again, they'll be focusing on next year. It's a shame though, because I genuinely thought Fernando would have had a good time out at Coda. He's been very spicy all year. Hungary was a great example of his defense against Hamilton for a very long time, which he had really no place defending for that long. I was hoping that we would see some more of that pace come through, especially through those S's, but yeah, not to be.
No, just unlucky.
Overall, though, it's definitely a weekend to forget for them, isn't it? Yep. Haas, which is weird to talk about them after Alpine, but Mazepin and Schumacher. Look, Schumacher almost gave Max a very big hand, didn't he?
Definitely
Whilst
helped,
he
didn't it?
held up Max a little bit, it did put him in DRS range. Which gave him the slipstream. And I just wonder if Mick Schumacher had moved over a lot earlier. I don't really know why he was going as hard as he was for that whole time. Mazepin, who ended up behind him finishing-wise, wasn't anywhere near him anyway.
No.
He could have just pulled off the track, and it would have been interesting to see what Lewis would have done. Again, I'm only saying that because Lewis was my mega driver this weekend, and I made a huge mistake.
Oh, no.
But really, for Haas, again, this is their home Grand Prix. It should have been a wonderful thing. Mick Schumacher had a special helmet. That was nice. But they just flail in insignificance, don't they, until it's the last couple of laps and the leaders are coming up on overtaking them.
Well, I think they were really trying to hang on to not be lapped twice. I think that was probably a conversation that was going on in the team garage, and he was never going to hold on to it. But I think that's probably why he was going as hard as he is. And I don't mind him going hard. It's unfortunate we didn't get to see Lewis with DRS. Don't think it would have made a massive dent in that gap. It may have, but Lewis realistically needed 2 or 3 laps of DRS to make that move anyway. So, but Schumacher, he's driving with a bit of poise and he's thumping his teammate.
Thumping. It's like a minute and a half down Mazepin on Schumacher and finishing time.
And look, I don't know what happened with their strategies because the back markers seem to pit 2 or 3 more times than everybody else at times, and you don't really know what's going on. They're glorified test team, but look, Schumacher's had a very good year considering the car he's in, and beating his teammates all you can do. That's all you can be asked to do. He's spanking him in qualifying continually, so a bit of a shame for Haas at their home track. But next year they can come back with all this development. They've got 2 races in the US and build the brand, and we've seen what that team can do in places like Melbourne.
Absolutely. When they're on, they're on high scale.
That's 2 years in a row. Anyway. Yeah, it's a real shame for them. So,
I'm really interested to see a bit of behind the scenes when we do see Drive to Survive about what actually happened. We've seen nothing. We've barely seen Gunter.
Yeah,
Like I
hardly
want to
seen
know.
him.
Yeah, I want to know some dynamics. What's actually happening? Because they're everywhere, but we see nothing of them. They just kind of turn up and they're at the back, kind
Yeah.
of like Williams. We want to know why they're at the back. What's going on? What's that team dynamic? And do we like these guys? And should we invest more time and energy into what their futures are?
Yep, I completely agree. And they are the team, aren't they? Really, apart from Alfa Romeo, but it's because Kimi is there. I think
Yep.
once Valtteri goes to Alfa, we'll see a slight change. Of course, we'll see probably a slight change with Andretti taking them over,
Yeah.
which is still not confirmed, but it's rumored to be done. And we know that Andretti has a massive following, and they will bring a lot of US fans to the sport.
Surely
so to
this
have
was the time to announce it.
I completely agree. But that's okay. Look, I'm sure it was only just done, apparently. So, anyway, it's interesting to see. But Williams, though, also equally struggled this weekend. Campy, no, even Mr. Saturday. Of course, he had an engine penalty and he was right down the very back. He went from 20th to 13th, which was fab on the first lap or 2 laps. But that's really where he stayed. He ended up finishing 14th, and the nicest driver in the grid, Nick Latifi, finishing in 15th after spinning around.
Yeah.
With Lance Stroll. Sorry, I said Ocon spun. I didn't mean that. I meant that Stroll had spun around. And that was unfortunate. It didn't seem like it was, a big deal. But, I mean, 2 Canadians spinning each other around. Sorry, eh? Eh? Sorry, eh? And then just drive off being nice to each other. But, yeah, Williams, they're kind of like for the mid part of the year, they came a long way and we saw them. And, like, it was a random podium that didn't really make sense. And they didn't deserve. And then they're here and it's like, oh, okay. Back there again.
Seems like they hit a bit of a purple patch, 4 or 5 weekends in a row, and they were nowhere this weekend. But a lot of the back market teams were nowhere compared to the. I mean, you could separate the top 5 teams pretty easily down with a knife. Everyone else behind wasn't doing too much. And, I mean, they're competing with Aston Martins, really. I mean, the times aren't comparative, but, I mean, I know things happen to Vettel and Stroll, which means they're on track together. But, look, bit of a shame for them too this weekend, but who cares? Move on.
Good summation. Tommy T,
seriously.
Alfa Romeo. Kimi Räikkönen was having a good bit of a go, and then it kind of spun it.
Yeah.
It was no good. He finished in 13th, then Giovinazzi in 11th. I'd like your opinion, Tommy T, because Giovinazzi still doesn't really know his future. We thought Guan Yu Zhou was going to be confirmed before Coda. That hasn't happened. We know the Andretti thing. We've talked about Oscar Piastri. We've spoken about a couple of different options here, but it's not really that fair on Giovinazzi. It kind of almost smells of Alex Albon and Red Bull and holding over, this seat over him for a very long time. Gio didn't do a terrible job, can I just say, especially with his racing with Alonso.
Yep. No, I think he's done fine. I think the problem's going to be if you're Andretti and you're buying in, you're going to want to have a say on everything there. You're not going to want to take over a legacy kind of thing. So I don't think he's going to get the answer he wants until very, very late this season, if not in the off season. I think that's just going to be the way it shakes out. Because why would they commit to something when they don't have to yet, when they've got all this opportunity to change, adapt? There's going to be nothing new that they don't want. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to be pretty unfair on him for the rest of the season. But he's performed well. I think he's hopefully going to be able to find another seat if he gets dropped this next coming season and come back, maybe just have 1 year off. Hopefully there's a bit of shake around, but who knows? I think he's just in the wrong place at the wrong time, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's probably a good call, Campy. What do you think? Because realistically, there's a lot of young talent waiting to come in. We know how Formula One loves hiring young people.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get this seat, where does he go?
Again?
If he doesn't get his seat, I mean, if he doesn't get his seat, he'll go to he won't come back, which is a shame for him. I mean, the guy's obviously got some pedigree. He's done well against Räikkönen. Räikkönen's off it. I would suspect that as a fan, I'm looking at Räikkönen and the career he's had, and knowing, that he is on the arse end of his career, and he is falling backwards, and he doesn't have the pace that he once had or used to. He's still pretty consistent, but you'd be expecting for him to make gains and headlines in the sport to be making Kimi look second rate. I mean, his 1 lap pace has been really pretty good, considering the car he's in at times in the second half of the season. But I mean, first lap incidences, they hurt when he's got some chances to to really make some points. I don't think he's doing anything wrong, but then again, the car's not really indicative of getting the consistent points where he needs to be. He's beating Raikkonen, which is probably a good feather in his cap, but I don't think it's enough at this stage of his career. I mean, he's had, 3 years in that seat now, and with a new organisation coming in, what are the plus sides of keeping him? And,
they're all very valid points.
in saying that, he's sitting there going, I'm wrong place, wrong time. The car's shit. My teammate's really good, and I'm beating him, which is all we can expect these drivers to do. But he goes, this is the year we were never supposed to have. Well, I was supposed to be in a brand new car and a brand new series next year with a chance, with all the cost cuts and all the the new technology, so it's more about the racing driver, not so much just dominated by machines. And he'd be frustrated going, I want that shot. And, that's probably the way he's looking at it. But unfortunately, I mean, these things just happen sometimes, and there's not a lot, you can do about it unless perform on track. And the car he's got says he can't really do it. So there you go.
Yeah, it is a shame, but it is Formula One, and of course, if that seat ends up going to Oscar Piastri, then we won't care at all.
No.
Aston Martin, look, again, not that great. Seb Vettel in 10th, Lance Stroll in 12th. Look, Seb obviously did a good enough job to come from 18th to 10th after having that engine penalty starting towards the back, and he finished in the points. There was you're right, Campy, there was a decent scrap in that middle pack for that last championship point, and the Alonso, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Vettel, Stroll, that area, and of course Tsunoda as well. That was probably more intense than anywhere else on the racetrack because they were taking a hell of a lot more risks to try and get those championships points, weren't they?
Absolutely.
Good, absolutely.
He's frozen.
It's just.
Sorry, you there? You got me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just went into a freeze.
Timing. Deep in thought, though.
Absolutely.
Oh, very deep in thought.
We've lost him.
Radio silence.
Clear. Yeah.
No, good point. Move on. I'm sick of talking about them.
Yeah.
Stroll didn't look good all weekend, did he?
No.
To be honest.
No.
I just don't think that car was set up for here.
Sorry.
I think they were just
It
struggling.
was just odd, Aston Martin. It's just an odd situation. I think for the rest of the year, they're just not going to be there.
I said yesterday that I would firm an eye on Stroll and look what he's doing, and he crashed in turn one. And I was like, oh, well, let's give up on the... He did get squeezed. I mean, Vettel showed some pace at times in the race. They were fighting pretty hard. That organisation, if they're not on the front foot for next year designing that car, they could fall back and be a very, 7th or 8th best team on the grid next year pretty quickly. I mean, they doubled down last year and went on that, copied the Mercedes or concept anyway. And then into this year, we know that Mercedes isn't working like it has previously. And that's why they're struggling so bad, because they took that concept last year and it worked for them. But this year, it
didn't really work for them. It just got Checo a drive at Red Bull. That was the only thing it did.
I mean, they got some races last year, but I mean, Force India when it moved to Racing Point and now Aston Martin. I mean, at times they were the best performing team out, when you compared the money comparisons, pound for pound, the best team. And the workshop worked really well. I know they had some problems with management with VJ Melly or whatever his name was, and then it got taken over. But maybe the heart's been ripped out of that team on what's happened, because they're, maybe it's because of the guy. Or maybe
The new campus will solve all the issues, Tommy T. You're very correct.
Look, it's a campus for ants. So.
A Zoolander reference. I did not expect that from you.
Bloody hell. Hang on a second. Slow down. New beanie on the head and a pop culture reference. Are you okay, mate?
That was one of the greats of that movie.
There you go. He was even there this weekend.
Merman.
We got way too much footage of him standing around the track unnecessarily. Thank you, Campy. Look, Tommy T, new campus. I think, as you're right, let's see what happens in that space. Exactly. I want to talk about AlphaTauri because Gasly, no good.
He sounded shattered, didn't he?
Well, I mean, they were bloody pulling his engine apart on the grid. trying to get it sorted, and then just hearing. I mean, the Honda motor sounds demonic at the best of times.
Yeah.
We know that from 2019, standing listening to it, but in slightly lower revs at slightly lower speed, it sounded more demonic. That just sounded pretty good, I thought. But shame for him because he's carried a lot of pace through this year. He's around that 6th, 7th, 8th fairly consistently. When he's on, he's had a couple of times where it's been a bit hard for him. But for his teammate in Yuki Tsunoda to start in 10th and finish in 9th and have a very good battle with Valtteri Bottas, can I just say. It was very good racing. Wasn't any random dodgy things or anything else. It was very good Yuki. Tommy T, I mean, he has to be happy for that, surely.
He has to be happy, but I still don't think it's good enough. He's got to capitalise on... That car was better than that position. I think, I don't know. I suppose the next up is Lando, so it is a tall order. But I don't know. When your teammate goes out, this is your time to shine. And I don't know if taking home 2 championship points is really doing it, is it? I don't think.
Well, I mean, it's better than overall for his whole performance this year. This would be his bare minimum compared to Gasly in a teammate putting it a lot higher.
Unless he's going to be in the fastest car and he can just defend the whole race, that's not going to do any good because he didn't pass anyone on track. All he was doing was stopping people getting through and annoying the shit out of everyone else. But he did well at that. You can't fault him. He was very good at placing that car in positions that were frustrating Max for ages, and then Lewis, and then so.
And what did you think of the Acura branding on the rear wing, Tommy T?
Disgusting. Just Acura's a dumb thing. Just don't do it. Americans, just get on board with the brands that the rest of the world has, you dummies. God.
I saw that for the weekend, and my first thought was, Tommy T is going to bloody hate this. He is going to bloody hate it. And I was right.
Just get over
Campy, Yuki in the bin, out of the bin for this weekend.
In the bin still.
Oh, yeah, good.
But hey, two weekends in a row, he is qualified in Q3 and he got some points. I can't remember if he got points at Hungary. I think he was 11th, maybe missed out. I mean, so he's heading in the right direction, and that's a cap in his feather that he'll continue. See what I did there?
You did not mean that.
I did so. Oh, I do this all the time.
That would have taken so much thought to try and say that without laughing.
Not that funny,
you're very good at
Come on.
laughing at yourself.
Mate, I am the king at taking the piss out of myself.
Well, that is true. That is true. Bloody hell, that was fantastic. Mate, you're on fire today.
Jason, my face every time he's having his blue eyes. Like...
I've got Tommy T's face just behind the camera here, so I always enjoy looking just behind to see your reaction.
Oh, there you go.
It is very good. But yes, a nice
just for the lulz.
Feather.
Yeah, I think he's on the way up, and he's getting some better results than what he's getting. So that's all he can be doing at the moment. He's got to drive for next year. Do I agree?
Well,
should he be in the sport in the first place? Should he go to drive next year? Well, no and no, but he's here, so we got to talk about him, don't we? And
yep.
Geez, he's so tiny though.
Did you see them try and put him in the boot of that? I think it was I saw it on social media. It was all of the Red Bull AlphaTauri boys in the back of a pickup, and they had this esky in the bottom of the tray, and they made Yuki get in it. He got all wet because it was full of ice. They shut the lid on him. Felt like you could put your suits and stuff in there. We'll have to find it now. It was good content.
Well, we'll post that in the Discord. Tommy T will go and find it and post it there. But yeah, AlphaTauri Tsunoda, not bad. His racing helper, Alex Albon's going to be on the grid kind of near him next year. So that's going to be interesting. But again, good guy Albon. Also, can I just say, good guy Albon got in a car with Perez and made some excellent content for Red Bull over the weekend. So there's no grudging there at all. The guy is just
good. He's a good guy.
Seems to be an absolute legend. So that's really nice. Let's talk about McLaren. Danny Rick in 5th, of course. Lando Norris in 8th. Tommy T, Lando, we just really didn't see a lot of him this weekend, did we?
Struggle though. Campy kind of was speaking about it in the pre-drinks, and I'm thinking,
ST ruggling. The pressure is on.
I think, like we've talked about, the shift is moving away from the car setup, which is something we don't know much about car setup. Let's be honest about that, hey. But it sounds like McLaren had a style of setup that favoured what Lando liked and was probably a bit more mainstream, say. Whereas Daniel's like, no, this needs to be on the edge. This needs to be crazy. And it's moving that direction, and Lando's not dealing well with it. We just saw that Daniel managed to squeeze a bit more out every qualifying session as well, and Lando just wasn't able to do it in that last one. And then same in the race. Like, he had so much more control of that car out of those turns. You saw Lando going in and very timid on his exits, whereas Daniel was putting the power down, letting it slide a bit, but controlling it much better than Lando was, especially on that opening couple of laps. It was, I think, telling now that that car is moving way more towards Daniel's style of driving.
I think to give him a bit of praise, which is unusual for this podcast,
Nope.
where he tried to send it when they were 3 wide with Sainz and Danny
Yeah.
Rick off the back straight, like that was a brave move.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like that was good. It was nice to see that kind of behavior still and the confidence in the car. It would, I mean, obviously we want Danny Rick to come out on top. That is obviously a no-brainer. We are that biased. It says it on the tin of the podcast if you didn't know that that's what we thought. But is it so much, and Campy, is it so much the setup of the car, or is it the upgrades that have been brought, or is it the track? Like, what is it that we've seen in a change between DR's, struggle town versus Lando's absolute domination through this end of the mid part of the season, coming into the latter part of the season where it's starting to shift? What do you think is actually going on? Or is it a mindset thing now for Lando? Is it the opposite of what we've had with DR at the beginning of the year?
Lando started here. Danny Rick was down here.
Hang on, this is great for the video, but
well,
started.
Look, think about it on the ladder. Lando started at about a 7, and he hasn't gone up. Danny Rick started on about a 4, and he's continually grown and got better and better and better. And they're about even at the moment. And by the end of the year, Danny Rick will be at a 9 or 10 on that scale.
Whoa.
Well, he's always 10 on my scale, but yeah, sorry. Look. What are you laughing at? You
Just because I could pull so many audio grabs from this podcast. There's always a 10 on my scale. Like just that by itself. I should give all these audio grabs to Lewis and see what he does with it. But no, that Lewis, is a very good audio description of what you were doing with your hands.
Lando's had some good results, but, let's look at it from halfway through the season. I didn't expect Danny Rick to struggle with the car so much, but knowing what we know now in hindsight, he got hindsight. We've all got PhDs in it, boys. So, knowing what we know now, looking back on it, I'm a lot more comfortable than where I was, after 5 races, and I'm scratching my head, going, "Geez, this could be grim." But no, he'll just continue to grow and get better. And next year, I think the car will be firmly the way he wants it. And he'll get better and better and better. But a couple of years, 3 years in that team, and geez, we'll be looking back on the first half of this year just going, yep.
But Johnny Herbert said he was done and he was talentless. Sorry, Uncle Johnny, you dickhead.
That's why Johnny didn't get a gig this weekend, because he's been mouthing off.
He's been put in
They're like, we cannot have Johnny Herbert talk shit about Daniel in Texas. That's not going to work for
If
anyone.
there's a guy that would probably get beaten up in Texas, it'd probably be Johnny Herbert. He's tiny, he's mouthy, he's got no facial hair. Texas, everything's big in Texas. Everything's big. Johnny'd go missing.
That's another snap.
Johnny would go missing. That's why Lucky Yuki had his whole team around him just so they could keep an eye on where he actually was. They didn't lose him.
Well, they did have Shaq there, didn't they?
I was going to say, if you are part of our
small
Discord
human
server,
being,
if you're not, go to our Discord server, check out the F1 meme section, because you might have seen it on the F1 socials, but just Shaq and the little podium guys, they've just shrunk them by 25%. Oh, it's such a bloody good weekend. Cannot wait to go to the US Grand Prix next year, boys. Yeah. It's going to be fantastic. But overall for McLaren, and we'll talk about Ferrari now as well, there is only 3.5 points. Oh, I hate these half points between McLaren in the lead in third and Ferrari in fourth. Yep. Every point counts here, so it would have been nicer to see, of course, Lando slightly higher. But we do have to bring a lot of praise to Ferrari for this weekend. Yep. Charles Leclerc drove a very clean no man's land race. And for a car that was not so good really in the beginning of the season, including last year for him, this is kind of where they would be hoping to be. If they can bag a couple more of these positions, then that third place in the championship, Tommy T, is good.
He's the king of that fourth in no man's land, isn't he? He does it so well. He just figures out the pace that he needs to maintain, looks after his tyres, and doesn't bother anyone else and just stays out of trouble. It's kind of an underrated talent that he's got. And we saw Lando do it earlier in the season as well behind the top three. But usually it's Bottas up there, but not today.
Not
He
today.
was outstanding, wasn't he? He got a really good start and he just edged that lead out when the fighting was happening behind him and just managed to stay there out of trouble, just run his own race, and you can't fault it really.
Ferrari have a power upgrade, we know, Campy, from a couple of races ago. It hasn't really shown a lot, but for this race, it's probably the biggest result, apart from, of course, Carlos and Turkey really being the only one passing anyone else. But for them, they're going to be hopeful that that's going to see them clear of third position and McLaren for the championship.
Yeah, look, it goes this race for third in the championship has gone swings and peaks and troughs the whole time. I mean, we saw McLaren get a big jump to like 18 points and it's slowly diminished. McLaren's going to have another track where they're going to absolutely dominate Ferrari. I mean, the cars, the way that they are designed are two different philosophies. So we're going to get to places where where track dependent car styles, allows you to be faster or slower. In saying that, I think where Ferrari and McLaren are better is that they've built the gap to the teams behind them big enough so that if it is a bad weekend for them, they're not going to be under pressure from your Alpines, your Toro Rossos, or your AlphaTauris.
There's a name blast from the past.
Yeah, and your Aston Martins. So it's all about what they can do on track, and I think we're all the gap, unless something happens to one of the top four drivers, being the two Mercedes and Red Bulls, the gaps and the points that they'll be fighting for are 1 and 2 points differential. So we're not going to see the massive swings like we've seen, but we're going to see McLaren come out and probably get a really good result by the end of there. Whereas Ferrari probably aren't going to get that big result; they're just going to be consistent the way through. So. Yeah, it's interesting. It's something to watch too.
It is, and it adds more complexity to the championship because generally it's, as you say, Tommy T earlier, Lewis has wrapped it up. Mercedes have generally wrapped it up. We've all moved on. Really, it was a couple of years ago where the third in the championship was a big deal with DR and Renault and all of that sort of stuff. And that was nice. That was the only exciting thing really in the championship, which was hard to be excited about third. But for this year, having the championship contenders at the front in Red Bull and Mercedes, they're definitely 1 and 2, and McLaren and Ferrari definitely 3 and 4. And then that's it. The rest of the pack, as you say, Alpine, Williams, the rest of them are somewhere around 100 and below points. So it is good for us. I mean, obviously it makes us a little nervous, but it's good for us and it's good for DR. And hopefully if they can secure that third position, that's a good second year in a row that they can do that and make, that stand just going a little bit further to either second or first for next year. But yeah, for Carlos Sainz, it was a bit much. He was like, he pushed me off the track and, a little bit of the end plate of his Ferrari front right wing had a bit of damage with DR's contact. But, I mean, it is what it is. I don't think DR's the kind of driver that pushes into anyone else, Campy. Is he? No.
Total racing incident. If anything, Sainz was going for a move that was never going to happen. So I mean, but he's got it. I don't blame him for going for it. It just didn't ever look like it was going to happen. So, and they did touch rear wheels before before it looked like Sainz and Danny Rick collided at the front of the car, which was what made the fronts connect when they hit the rears. And I think the rears hitting was more Sainz's fault than Danny Rick's. So.
Yep, there you go. That's a good summation. But Tommy T, I mean, he had Bottas behind him for a good while. The fight went from him trying to take DR to then him defending to Bottas. Bottas had some good moves, ended up in 6th. Let's talk about Mercedes. VB, did you expect a little bit more from him this weekend starting in 9th?
I did, but just knowing his, struggles with overtakes and also that Mercedes not liking overtakes, it's almost like on a track where overtakes are more possible, they're worse somehow because everyone else can kind of play that kind of I don't know, use of DRS and to their advantage, but he just couldn't make it work, could he?
Can't
I think
follow.
the roles reverse and you put Lewis in that position, I think he would have just flown through in that car. For whatever reason, the setup just doesn't work for Bottas with his ability to overtake. He needs to start that car in the top two really to have a chance, or start from the very back and just bolt on that downforce on like
Yeah.
a spot you can't overtake, and then just get past people that way, I guess. But yeah, disappointing. We have seen really good stuff out of Bottas, so we can't be too harsh on him since the announcement of him moving.
Yep.
He's been outstanding. So I think this is still solid. He's doing his
Yep.
job for the team. It is what it is. They consolidated that kind of constructors' loss potentially by having a double podium for Red Bull. So that's a tick. He's still doing what they want, even though he's not there next year. But can't fault it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Campy. I mean, your thoughts on
qualified fourth. I mean, that's all you can ask him to do. He was, he's within 2/10 of them, and coming up against Max and Lewis. What more do you want from the second driver?
Yep.
To give him a grid penalty. Yesterday, I think I said, look, he's not going to pass anyone just
Poor
because.
guy.
It's not that there's not pace in the car, but I mean, he got held up by Sonoda or Gasly or whatever it was for the first 15 laps, and just ruins your race.
Yep.
It's a constant fight back when he got in some clean air. He's trying to drive up the road, but yeah, it's a shame for Bottas. I mean, I really want him to have a win this year, but yeah, look, maybe he's not as good as I wanted him to be. So,
Well, he hasn't had a win this year, don't forget.
No, he has.
He has had that win.
I mean, he drove that win in Hungary, which was beautiful, and he probably should have had a few more podiums too.
Yep.
If the team didn't, do stupid things like, take this. Yeah, it's
having his
Monza.
17th motor.
Like Monza.
Yeah.
Don't.
Lewis, let's talk about Lewis Hamilton, Tommy T, because he looked pretty dejected, didn't he? Again, sat in the same place as he sat after qualifying inside the the sort of FIA area where they all get weighed and everything else. Angela, his trainer, who's from New Zealand, so that's really nice, but sought some comfort there, and he could tell that he really wanted this, couldn't you? And that he just wasn't happy with his performance at all.
Yeah. I don't think he did anything wrong, though. I think he just got outplayed by the two cars, which is just
strategy.
roles reversed, hey?
Yeah.
Like, we have not seen that, and all of a sudden he's on the back foot because there's two cars surrounding him. He has to make the move when they made him make that move.
Yeah.
He had no other option.
Yep.
And like, we talked about it quickly, but like Max knew full well that they had to use Checo in that point to force that move for Lewis to pit, so that Max could sail away and manage that. I mean, to his credit, he still had it. Like a couple of overtakes here and there, a couple of like blue flags changed, and he would have been fine, wouldn't he? Like, he was so close, but it's one of those ones. I don't think you can fault what they did with one car versus two.
What was the gap after the second pit stop? I think it was about 8 seconds. He was back on Verstappen. On the hards. And I know Verstappen had some tyres that weren't that great. He'd used a bit more of them. But, I mean, he drove right up to get within, 8/10 over the finish line. You're right in saying, that they got played by Red Bull, and they did. But Mercedes has done this to people.
Oh, for
For
sure.
they've done it to Max Verstappen and Red Bull. This is just getting it back. He was dejected because their pace on Friday just says to me that something went on in the garage that we don't know about, and he'd be super frustrated about it. But hey, look, let's just be fascinated with the guy and his fight and the way he's able to drive and come back to adversity. He's a sook, and rewatching that 2014 season, oh mate, the emotions and the way he played it was just sickening to watch. And it makes me sort of almost go back to my previous thoughts about Hamilton, although he has grown on me. But he will get it right by the end of the year. He's going to win. He'll win at least 3 more races, in my opinion. And, look, he's that capable. If we get a track where it's wet, I know Max is just as capable. He will make the most of some of his opportunities. And if he gets the luck that he's had in previous championships, which you always need, he'll be fine. But, in saying that, they've left some big points on the table this year. I mean, I go back to Baku, I think Spa. They listened. Oh, Spa didn't happen. There's another race in there where they left. They just left 7 points on because of dumb mistakes in the team. At a minimum, I mean that extra 25 points or 18 points at Baku that goes back and it still sits him that extra 12 points is in front now and he's still got some breathing room. But the problem.
Do you think this goes all the way to the end of the season without a clear winner?
Absolutely.
The last race?
Absolutely.
That's what we want, don't we?
That's what we want. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
The thing is these races become, like if you come second to Max, it's almost 2 goals for 1, right? You lose 7 points, but it's this guy gained it. So it's hard this weekend too.
Yep.
I mean 6 points doubled to 12. It's 2 goals for getting that win.
Yep.
At least he got the fastest lap, and that could play into it as well. Yeah, but I mean this is what it comes back to for me. I would hate to see this championship decided by what happened at Spa.
Yeah, me too. Yep, couldn't agree with you more. Shouldn't have been awarded points.
I'm looking at that now, and I go, shit. Do I think Verstappen deserves it? Do I want him to win it more than Hamilton? Yeah. Absolutely. But I'll be looking back at this season, going, geez, if a bit of stuff had gone his way, that would have been different. But at the moment, Spa is still deciding, where we're at. So yeah.
It absolutely is. It's I hated that whole thing. It was just not good at all. Let's talk about Red Bull. Great for Sergio Perez. As I mentioned, he didn't have any drinks at all for the whole race, which would have been absolutely not a good thing. But he put it in third. He played the best rear gunner I think he's played all year. He was finally there to be used as that strategy pawn, as you said. Tommy T, Max Verstappen getting on the radio and going, get him out into the pits, to force Lewis to do the same thing. And it worked. It's great that Max held off Lewis, of course. Karen Horner came on and said we were worried about the last couple of laps with the tyres. We didn't think they were going to hold on, but Max drove a great race. But for your point of view, Tommy T, Red Bull overall this weekend?
Outstanding. Yeah, outstanding. I think the biggest thing that Checo's had to finally figure out was his qualifying. Because his race pace has been always good. It's just getting into a position to start the race that's actually effective rather than always starting out of the points and fighting through. Just start at the front, dude. Why are you making it so much harder for yourself? And he seems to have turned a corner, and Karen was very positive about him after qualifying, saying,
yes,
this is what we've needed. This is what has been missing. And finally, we've got that rear gunner. We've got that kind of teammate for Max to do these things. And they took full advantage of it, didn't they? I mean, they didn't get the 1-2, but they did just about as good as they could have. I think it was really impressive for the team as well. And Checo, just outstanding from him. To keep with them, because in the past we've seen him or Bottas in that second driver just drop back from the top 2 and almost create that window themselves and then have to try and undercut, try something to force it from there. But he was with Hamilton for a lot of that race as well, which is full credit to his race pace as well and maintaining.
He's come back, Campy, hasn't he? I mean, when they signed him for second year, he kind of fell off a little bit, didn't he? But he's now starting to make that good move towards the front.
Yeah, it's 1 race, 2 races out of the 15 we've had. Still not good enough for me, but hey, he's heading in the right direction, so that's all you can ask for him. I thought he carried on a bit about being spent after 20 laps. I was like, if you can't drive this thing for 20 laps, no, but it's some of the races we have, like this year and last year, that are taxing on your body. Coda is not one that comes to mind. Yes, it's hot, but I thought he played it up a bit. But anyway, I mean...
He's just sweated like 4 kilos and he can't replenish it with anything, you jerk.
Oh, Kimmy does it all the time. You never hear him mentioned, do you?
Well, you do. That's the point.
He just swears at everyone.
No, he just says, but he doesn't carry on in the media afterwards.
Yes. Well, look, good for Red Bull.
Good for Red Bull.
I'm glad to see, it needs some domination. You need some Red Bull domination, some Mercedes domination, some equal, go to a race, have a different attitude. That's what we want, right, Campy?
Yeah, that's what we want. And I just want to say, just see turn 1 get up when Lewis came out of the pits and he was behind Max Verstappen. The cheer was like,
audible.
Clearly the guy's well loved. But for me, that's just a big changing point. That that is the
think
last.
it's
No, I think
really
that could be the last time we see Hamilton in front of Verstappen for the rest of his career, and that
Cool.
that pass in the pits, although it wasn't on track, the
Yeah.
fans got around it, and the cheer was massive, and
I don't even know if
that
it's
to me is
anti-
surprising.
I don't think it's anti-Lewis as much as it's just anyone new, anyone different.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, no, you're right.
sustained dominance is just one of those things that sports people want to rail against and find the underdog and something different and new. Like you see it in basketball, you see it in all these sports that sustained dominance, like Michael Jordan, everyone wanted to beat him. And if you could, you were the best, but no one could
Yeah.
because he's the second best we've ever had. Isn't that right, Campy?
Look, it's. Oh goodness me! That's look. You go talk about that on your podcast, your basketball podcast.
People under
Oh,
people at the age under 30, I just don't even deal with anymore.
30,
Under
mate.
Well, you are
Just turned
30 in
30.
like 30 in 1 month, so like you're still in the under 30 category.
jeez.
Because you were 30, you were under 30.
Campy doesn't believe in logic or maths.
Oh,
Yeah.
maths. Oh,
I do love people doing maths live on air, and Brundle doing maths live on air about the points at the end. It's like, oh, just wait to see
just
what the
leave
official thing is. Anyway, boys, that's our team by team analysis done and dusted for Coda. Let's talk fantasy names. Do love this part of the podcast, and thank you to you for taking the time to change the names. There's been a heap, so I'm only going to read a select few. Here we go. Double bacon breakfast taco. Alex B. Yeah, Crofty couldn't help himself telling us that story time and time again. Bottas, the ICE man, which I love. Iceman, internal combustion engine. Save a horse rider, Daniel. Hell Boogity. The international one-fingered salute of disapproval, David L. Ravenclaw Racing, Emily G. Emily, I put that in there because Campy would have absolutely no idea what that's about. Jonathan C. Forgot to update my team. That's just Campy every week. Daniel does Dallas
you Muppets.
or Austin. Josh L.
Daniel
PhD in
Dallas.
PhD in hindsight. Byron H. Sheriff Ricky Bobby reporting for duty. Haley H. Dr. Hindsight at Campy's University. Aaron B. This one. Campy's feet flavored humble pie. James M.
No.
Johnny Herbert, the Jar Jar Binks of Sky F1. Massive bin in the Yas F1 team. Mason C, except the S's are all dollar signs.
These are very good.
Martin Brundle trying to be hip with the kids. Harrison Z. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 power units for Bottas. Nathan R. Land do or land don't? That is the question. Jason M.
Very good.
Tommy T, I've got some bad news for you.
I know.
Campy is overtaking you again by doing absolutely nothing to his team. 26th for
We're
Campy,
boys.
I went to
28th
change my
for
team
you.
and it timed out and qualifying started.
Stop it.
Oh,
Literally, I had it
God.
there and it's like, you cannot put this in. I was like, no, it still says it's got 3 seconds. And then it timed out. I was like,
I'm 61st.
idiot. That's on my,
in
that's
the
my
bin.
fault. Dumb.
Yeah, it Campy. It's very annoying how well you're doing at that. Can I just say?
Considering you do nothing.
Considering you do nothing, but you are probably going to win. Tommy T. Look,
Oh,
let's
that'll
let
be
you and I
3 years on the trot. I've beaten
Oh,
you
you're
two.
not. You did not win last year.
I
Don't-
did so.
You did not. Not out
I'm
of the three
going
of
back
us.
to listen.
Yeah,
I'm
you
telling you, I
should.
did.
You should. Well, look, that is our race review of the United States Grand Prix at Coda. As I said up the top, we would love to be there next year. I'm sure definitely Campy's probably going to be there. I'm definitely probably going to be there. I'm only saying definitely probably because we don't know what's going to happen with Dan Andrews and letting Campy out. You might have to ask nicely. But it would be awesome to do that. Tommy T, would obviously be great to have you there as well. It'll be USGP, definitely. Hopefully Coda is the other one that we definitely do a Lakeside drive get together with. But thanks so much for doing everything to support the show. As I said, either leaving a review, liking this video on Instagram, on YouTube, subscribing to our YouTube, or liking the posts that Lewis is going to be doing on Instagram, and buying merch. A whole bunch of you bought merch the last couple of weeks. That's been awesome too. Of course, that helps us financially. You guys are legends. We really love doing this. We really, really love the community that we've got. So you are the biggest star as part of all of this. And I'm not trying to be cheesy with that. I genuinely mean it. So that's it for this Grand Prix review. Now, Campy, are we going to have a classic race review next Monday? And if we were to have a classic race review, would you like it to be the 2001 Brazilian Grand Prix because it's on KO?
cracking race. We'll do that. It's a sound.
All right.
It's a bit more accessible for everyone. I might need to borrow one of your KOR logins.
I'll
So
hook you up. If you pay full price for a KO login, you need to find a friend and share the load there.
Yeah.
But let's do that. The 2001 Brazilian Grand Prix. We will do a classic race review of that. 5:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time next Monday. If you're in Australia, you can find it on KO. That's where it lives. But lads, been fantastic as always to do this with you. We'll see you next week for our classic race review, and then of course the Mexican Grand Prix.
yeah.
And thank you to you, chat. Thanks all of our YouTube comments. Wow, fantastic heaps of them. I apologize for not reading through this. Creaky27 Campetric New Universal Measuring Unit. Right, good. I probably misread that. Like metric.
I get it.
Metric.
I
Love
like
it.
that.
Superfan Racing. G'day. How you going? Haley, yes. Love that. He mentioned in an interview that he had diarrhea early in the day. Oh, Checo, yes. Yeah, no good for
Ah,
that.
right. I wasn't
that was
aware of
also
that.
no
Take
good.
it back
Okay.
now. Or you still being a jerk?
No.
Nah.
David, I love the fact that Daniel clearly beat Lando, out-qualified and beat him in the race, all caps. Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's not how the
Harrison,
story will be
thanks
told
very
on
much for
Sky.
joining us for the whole thing as well. Paul, great to have you.
Yeah.
Look, we'll leave it there, and thanks so much for being on YouTube. We genuinely appreciate it.